even know if created the commercial and where they found him. I don't know if he had to audition. I don't know if the ad in the paper said, everybody show up in black and a hoodie. I don't know. But what I do know is that what we did just a moment ago wasn't good. And I promoted that. I did that on purpose. Okay? I did that on purpose. But there are some things sometimes I think that are identifiers that as Christians or people being raised up in a Christian home that we pay attention to. And we learn things. We learn things about people. And we learn things about why they choose to listen to the music they do, why they choose to wear the clothes they do, why they choose to, all of those things. And we do have to pay attention. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to get to know them. Because you know what that young man might need more than anything? Not just a friend. What kind of friend? A godly friend. Because what's that godly friend going to try and do with that young man? What do you think might be missing in that young man's life? Let me rephrase. Who do you think might be missing in that young man's life? God? Someone else, though. Yeah. Christ. Christ might be missing in his life. So being a good friend to him, and we'll see why here in a little bit after we get into the materials more. So honesty is the first chapter of the Book of Wisdom, Thomas Jefferson said one time. So if you remember the commercial, or if you saw that, then, you know, the cops are watching this kid too to see what he does. And they witness him handing the purse back to the lady that forgot it, that left it at the bus stop. And so the police officer there that's looking at him, he says, "Hey, kid, come here." Any of you remember what the police officer told the kid? Good. He said, "Good job. Good job. Good job. Pass it on." All right. Well, Emily Dixon said a long time ago, truth is such a rare thing, it's delightful to tell it. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Any of you ever break a window? Yeah, I did too. I broke a window with a football. Yeah, with your hand. Yeah. 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 Awesome. Just broke. Yeah, just broke. This little girl right here, the baseball used to be on the outside of the house, but now the baseball is on the inside of the house, and it came through that window. And from the look of that gentleman there staring down at her, do you think he's upset? What kind of the response that she's about to give him, what do you think he expects of her? Or to at least do what? Tell the truth. I did it. I did it. Truth is such a rare thing. Okay, here's some information. This is taken actually from 2008. It's a bit dated, about 7 years old now. But there were some polls that were taken concerning honesty. At the bottom there, if you can read that, it says, "Don't cheat or help others cheat. Keep your promises. Don't lie. Admit when you've done something wrong." A survey of nearly 30,000 students in American high schools, revealed the following about stealing. 30% admitted stealing from a store within the past year. 23% said they stole something from a parent or relative. 20% confessed they stole something from a friend. And this all comes from Josephson Institute 2008 report card on the ethics of American youth. Does that seem troubling to you? Now, you know, there's millions of kids in America, and only 30,000 were polled. And the type of poll that was done was fair. It wasn't. It was a kind of a random thing. And those percentages, I agree. I would think that those are kind of high. Now, the next thing in that same poll addressed the subject of lying. Almost half, 42% of those 30,000 young people said they sometimes lie even to save money. Now, I don't know why they would lie to save money, but they said they did. 83%, that is incredibly high, confessed they lied to a parent about something significant. Wow. Wow. Lying. What does lying get us? Can. What about between mom and dad? Between you and mom and dad?
Breaks your trust bucket, so they don't trust you as much as they
Breaks our trust. Trouble. Yeah. With a capital T, trouble. It gets us in trouble, doesn't it? It gets us in trouble. Well, the next thing in this survey, it says that 64% admitted to cheating on a test during the past year. 38% cheated 2 or more times. What happens when we cheat on a test? What did we learn? Even if we cheated and got the right answer down, what did we learn? Absolutely nothing. We learned what our neighbor knew. We learned how smart they were or how hard they studied. Over half of those 30,000 young people, over half of them said they cheated on a test. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, and I'm not going to ask questions like, how many of you have lied to your parents? How many of you have cheated on a test? I'm not going to do that, because I want you to sit there and say to yourself, is that me? Is that me? And if the answer is yes, what can you do to change your honesty?
Lying is like a two-headed viper.
Mm-hmm.
You face off your opponent, you get bit by the other side.
That's right. There's not a winning solution in lying. There's absolutely not. Okay, well, it certainly does. Amazingly, these same students have a high self-image when it comes to ethics. Even though they admitted to lying and cheating and things like that, 93% said they were satisfied with their personal ethics and character. What is wrong with that picture?
That means they're okay with cheating.
They should be ashamed.
It means they're okay with cheating. Who said that? Very good. That's in my notes, by the way.
Well, we need more lies.
Yeah. It means that whenever it comes to their character, they were okay with that. In other words, it didn't register on their integrity chart that that was wrong. Now, what's wrong with that picture? That's absolutely right. It's like lying to yourself. 77% said that when it comes to doing what is right, they are better than most people they know. Oh, that's scary. Wow. That is incredibly scary. They're incredibly scary, yeah. All right, well, let's move on to something else now. Honesty. Honesty, and we've been looking at lots of stuff outside of a spiritual setting. Go ahead.
I just say on the previous slide,
Yep.
I think one of the reasons that such a huge percent are so satisfied with their ethics is a reflection of that second one.
Yes.
If I think that everybody else is worse than me, it makes me very satisfied with where I am.
There you go.
And unfortunately, when everybody starts to adopt that thought, it drops
Yeah.
the level that everybody's operating at from an integrity perspective, work ethic, whatever.
Yep.
And if we were to switch that around, which we try to do as Christians, and make Christ the object of my comparison, then I'm always feeling an effort to try to improve because I'm not there yet. But when I start comparing to everybody else, it's easy to look and go, well, that person has this character that's worse than me, or this person has this other thing that's worse than me, and it starts to make me feel a lot better, whether that's a lie or not, which it probably is. It makes me feel better, and now I don't have something to strive for.
Yep.
But Christ in our lives flips that around.
You're exactly right. You're right on track. And that's in my notes too.
Sorry.
No. You're good. This is incredible. This is awesome. But this and really what you're saying is this is self-taught. This is self-taught. We start to convince ourselves that this is okay, either because we're seeing other people do it and get away with it, or for whatever, it makes me feel better on the inside. So I'm teaching myself the wrong way. What is it easier to do? Cheat or study for the test? It's easy to cheat, right? Well, you know, I've got my Wii U, and I can play it for the next 6 hours instead of studying, or whatever it is that I do. And so the next thing I find myself doing is, oh no, Mama said it's time to go to bed. I've got to go to bed now. So I go to bed. And I get up the next morning and I know I've got a test. And this is just a test. Maybe it's in English or in history or in social studies or whatever it might be, and it's just a test. It's just a test. Who cares? And the more I convince myself of who cares, I'll stop caring. And I'll do exactly what you just said. So now, honesty is the divinely appointed standard for humans, for people. Whether people are going to be a Christian or not be a Christian doesn't really. The divine appointment, whenever God created mankind, is that honesty is part of us. It ought to be that way from the beginning. So we can do some things. We can pray that we might live a life of honesty, Paul says to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 10, verse 2. Who wants to read? Who wants to read? Raise your hands if you want to read. Any of you, really. But raise your hands. Thou shalt read. 1 Timothy 2 and 2.
1 Timothy 4:2 talk about lying having a conscience seared. Those kids were cheating and lying because their conscience was.
Very good. Is that a typo? Oh, yes. No, you're exactly right. Read, do you have it open? 1 Timothy 2 and 2 as well. 2. 1 Timothy chapter 2 comes after 1 before the 3.
Okay. For kings and all who are in authority, that we may lead quiet and peaceful life in all godliness and reverence. Is that the correct?
Yep. Paul encourages us. He's writing to Timothy and encouraging Timothy on how to instruct and teach other people. Paul instructs Timothy about prayer, that we might live this life of honesty. And embedded into that thought, it starts in verse 1, that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all people. Kings, all who are in authority, that we may lead this quiet and peaceable life in all godliness with reverence. Different translations there will throw in the word honesty or even integrity. So about that way of living. So why is it that we need to pray for people who have absolutely no intent of living or leading a Christian life? God still loves them, doesn't He? He still wants them to change, and He expects us to try and lead that effort. Walk honestly toward those who are without or those who are outside. We don't want to be confused about what Paul tells the Thessalonian brethren there in chapter 4 and verse 12. Who wants to read that 1 Thessalonians? So go ahead.
So that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders, and so that you will not be dependent on anybody.
Okay. Our daily life wins those who are outsiders. Outsiders of what? I heard it. The church. Yeah, those people who aren't Christians. So we need to walk honestly toward everyone who's outside of the Lord's church, that those who are without Christ. And then also to provide things that of honest things. Romans chapter 12 and verse 17. We're going to read every single one of these, so you might as well go ahead, Jeremiah. Very good.
Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all.
But isn't it fun to get back? Oh, they said something bad about me, so I'm going to say something bad about that. Watch this. They're trying to hurt my reputation. We're going to fire right back.
That hurts your reputation even more.
Yeah, there's not a winning solution from that. So what can we do? Be honest. Be honorable. In the face of that adversity, what does Christ expect of our behavior?
Turn the other cheek in a sense. Turn the other cheek.
In a sense, yeah. He expects us to be a Christian, doesn't he? He expects us to have that high level of that kind of integrity. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 21. Go ahead.
Providing honorable things, not only in the sight of the Lord, but also in the sight of men.
Okay, not just to make or to please Christ, but in the sight of everyone, right? In the sight of everyone. A couple more. Have your conversation honest among the Gentiles. We read this last night, but 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 12. Go ahead, Hunter.
Having your conduct honorable among the Gentiles.
That when they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works which they observe, glorify God in the day of visitation.
Okay, so when we're going to have our conversation honest among everyone else in the world, what's that going to get us? Might get hate and disappointment too. What's it going to get us, though? Ooh, I heard it. Say it again. God's approval. Notice verse 12 again. When our conduct here on the earth, and remember we're here on the earth just for a little while, we blink and we're grown up, or at least in our parents' eyes. We blink and our children are grown up. And so we're here, we're sojourners, just for a little while we're pilgrims, and we're to abstain from those awful evil things in the world in verse 11. But as a result of that, we have our conduct honorable among the Gentiles because they're going to try and talk bad about us. But when we have such a high level of the type of honesty that we ought to, then what's going to happen is that our good works, the end result is going to be what? Glory to who? God. Is it about me? Or is it about God? It is about God. Everything about me should reflect Christ. And God receives the glory for that. One more, 2 Corinthians 13 and verse 7. Go ahead.
Now I pray to God that you do no evil, not that we should appear approved, but that you should do what is honorable, though we may seem disqualified.
That's a really, read it one more time and put emphasis on the word disqualified.
Now I pray to God that you do no evil, not that we should appear approved, but that you should do what is honorable, though we may seem disqualified.
How is it that we might seem disqualified when trying to do something that's honorable?
The rest of the world may say, hey, why are you doing that? Why don't you just come over with us and drink a beer or something?
Maybe. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Maybe. Some people think that way, don't they? Why though, might we seem disqualified? Think about that word disqualified. What's it mean to be disqualified? Not worthy, or even rejected, or ejected. Whenever we're trying to do something honorable, let's think of it like this. How many of you have ever said, and I do want you to raise your hand if you feel like it, how many of you have ever said, I don't think I can do that? Yep, I'm right there with you. I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can talk to this person about this thing. It can be tough, can't it? It can be tough. But we ought to be so bold to not think of ourselves as disqualified. You know, sometimes I didn't touch a thing. And I'm being completely honest. Okay, so sometimes someone might ask us a question about the Bible. You people down there at the Church of Christ, you think you know everything. You know, there was a point in time not too long ago that was a pretty fair statement. Because the Lord's church studied so much, we had the answers. We could give them an answer. This is why. This is what. This is where. This is how. We could. But for whatever reason, over the last 20 to 25 years, that's sort of taken a... And now the response might be, you know, that's a good question. I need to call someone else. And what happens is we become comfortable with saying that. I need to call someone else. But we don't need to call someone else. We need to be able to give an answer. It doesn't mean that we have to be a scholar when we're 9. But when we're 19 or 29 or 39 or 49 or 59, we ought to be able to continually grow, so that we can be able to answer that question. Go ahead, Jeremiah.
I've heard of people who would, so if someone were to be asking them, hey, why don't you use instruments in worship of God?
Mm-hmm.
Some people have like a little pocket Bible and a small magnifying glass so they could take it out, flip to the page and show them the verses.
Mm-hmm. There you go. How many of you have a small Bible and a magnifying glass in your pocket? I have a small Bible right there. It's, eSword. I don't know how many of you use eSword. eSword's an app you can get for your phone or your tablet, or put it on your PC. It's a wonderful study guide program type thing. It's free. It didn't cost I think for the iPhone or for Apple products, it costs a little bit, but for PC-based stuff, Microsoft stuff, it's free. But anyway, how many of us have the Bible on something like this? This one sitting right there. So we do have the little pocket Bible in our hip pocket that now we can say, oh, well, this right here says this and this and this. Read it. It's amazing what happens when we just don't say, well, this is what it says, but we let other people read it too. Okay, honesty. Even if others are disobedient. 2 Corinthians 13, verse 7. 2 Corinthians 13, verse 7. It's also what we just read a bit ago there. Do that which is, we haven't read it yet, but do that which is honest. 2 Corinthians 13, 7. And here, even if others are disobedient. Who wants to read that? Oh, come on. Very good. 2 Corinthians 13, 7. Without participation, you don't get to eat until Wednesday. Go ahead.
Now I pray to God that you know evil. Not that we should appear approved, but that it should be what is on
Okay. Keep going. Though we may seem disqualified. Again, the same reading there. Even when other people are trying to harm us, or when we see outright they're cheating, they're lying, they're stealing, we still have a responsibility in being honest. Honesty is associated with godliness. Back to 1 Timothy 2:2, we read that a little bit earlier. Honesty is associated with godliness, and we are to be honest even when others have been evil to us. It's fun when people talk bad about us behind our backs, isn't it? Now we find ourselves defending ourselves. That's tough. That's tough. One more passage, Romans 12:17. Who wants to grab that one? Very good. Go ahead.
Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all.
Okay, how many times have we read now, repay no one evil for evil? Lots, right? Yeah, good counting. I'm glad you're paying attention. This is important. This is important. It really is. I'm not trying to be silly with that. I'm trying to keep you awake. But these things are important.
Okay, I did actually read verse 19 of Romans 12.
Mhm.
Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but let room for God's wrath, for it is written, it is mine to revenge, I will repay. Says the Lord.
Yeah, so that verse really means we're just supposed to be pushovers, right? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We do need to stand up for ourselves because the truth is the truth. We do need to stand up for ourselves and even on occasion defend ourselves if necessary. But that doesn't mean that we're the ones that get to have the vengeance. Guess what happens whenever our little brains start thinking vengeance?
You can fall into sin. You can fall into sin from that's the thing that takes over your mind at that time. You can't focus on anything else but getting back at that person.
Mhm. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5 that when we're thinking that way, we've already sinned. We've already sinned. So what we need to think about vengeance is it's not the getting back or the getting even or those ugly kinds of things like that. What's more important is still yet that person that was trying to be mean to us. And let's just paint a picture. Let's say that this person, they're dressed all in black and they have a hoodie on and there's tattoos all over them. They got this thing in their nose like this and it makes them talk funny, but it's a nose ring and so on and so forth. And they got this thing in their tongue and it goes click, 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 click when it hits their teeth. And dentists tell you not to do that anyway, but people do it and so on and so forth. And it's this person who we think that is, oh, I don't even need to talk to them. I need to stay over here like this and they need to stay over there like that. But you know what the number one thing they need in their life?
Someone to talk to about God.
They need Christ. How are they going to get Christ?
By talking to someone who knows about it.
Who's that going to be?
Us.
It's like a poster thing that you see on the highway. You can prevent wildfires.
Yeah.
Only you can say that.
There you go. We sing a song. We are the only Bible the careless world will know, or the careless world will read. What if the type is crooked? What if the print is blurred? If we're not being that person we need to be, even to the one who, in all appearances, is the motorcycle ganger bike kind of a person that scares us, we have to show Christ to them. Now, I don't want to put yourselves in danger. I'm talking to children and there's parents here. I'm not saying, go up to the motorcycle gang and show them Christ. No, it's... but we need to understand, we need to understand that it's our responsibility to show the world Christ. All right.
Like if you see somebody that looks like that doing a good deed, you could then, if you think that you could just walk up and say, hey, that was a really good deed you did, and then just start talking to them about Christ.
Sure. And, to be honest with everyone here, I have been really impressed sometimes in trying to visit with individuals that have the appearance of what might seem evil, but really they're not. They have a kind and tender heart. Go ahead, Ron.
Since we're talking to children, apply it to other children at school. Children who don't look like you, maybe have a different skin color than you, maybe a different shape than you, they talk differently than you, or they have some sort of disability. Friend those ones. They need it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what breaks my heart when we take Matthew to school? He goes to a small country school. It's called Frank Chambers, and it's just a kindergarten or preschool through the 8th grade, and then he'll go to McAllister. But when we take Matthew to school, one thing that I've noticed for the last 3 years, and then taking him to school 4 years, is that they serve breakfast in the classroom, and there's some children that they just devour their breakfast. And it's because at home they don't get that. And that's really so we make sure that Matthew has food at home. He has breakfast before he goes to school. And so that when he's there, he has an opportunity to give his to someone else. We want him to do that, and we want other children seeing him doing that. Not to put him on a pedestal of any kind, but just so that this attitude of gratitude kind of a thing, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, but so that we help him to realize the importance of everyone, just like Rhonda was saying, of everyone who may be less fortunate than we are, and perhaps we're not paying attention to that. And it might be because of how they dress. Maybe that's all they have. And who knows what their mommy and daddy watch or listen to or have laying around at the house. We have to pay attention to those around us. God has appointed his children to live differently from the world. Someone turn to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. Go ahead.
I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God.
Okay, at the end of verse 1, Paul uses a word about our service. What kind of word did he associate with our service? Reasonable. He hasn't asked us to do something we're not capable of doing. He hasn't asked us, he doesn't have this expectation of something that's impossible. He says it's reasonable. It's reasonable. What's reasonable about being a Christian? We think, oh, it's so hard. I don't get to have those friends anymore, and I don't get to do this, and I don't get to do that. We make Christianity this big negative thing, and it's not. We get to love God, absolutely. He gets to show us his love, too. What's reasonable about our service?
Being a Christian and not going. Some people, whenever they think church as like life church where they only party and like that. But really, there's something greater than what any life church could offer that you can earn from being a Christian.
Okay.
Eternal life in heaven.
Okay, and not that we earn that. It's a gift. It's a gift. We can't do anything to earn or merit our salvation. As a matter of fact, Jesus would say when we've done, and this associates very closely with what Paul said about reasonable service, Jesus says, when you've done all that it is your duty to do, still consider yourself what? An unprofitable what? Servant. Servant. How many of you have sang the servant song before? Have you ever sang the servant song? It's in the supplement. I don't know if you have the supplement, but the servant song. It's a beautiful song. And it's really about, here's what Christ did. Here's what we ought to do. About being a servant in service to others. God expects us to be different. The world might live dishonestly. And that is a huge, not just a might, but a probability. The world lives dishonestly. And Christians are simply to be honest. The psalmist David writes in the 15th Psalm and says, Lord, who may abide in your tabernacle? Who may dwell in your holy hill? He who walks uprightly and works righteousness and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a vile person is despised. But he honors those who fear the Lord. He who swears to his own hurt and does not change. He who does not put out his money at usury, nor does he take a bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be moved. I have a favorite verse in that reading right there, and it's really verse 3. He who does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor. You know, this little thing, how many ears did God give us? 2. How many tongues did God give us? 1. There's this stuff in your mouth called teeth. I broke one of mine not too long ago. Sometimes when I talk, I whistle, and I have to get it fixed here Tuesday. Anyway, guess what those teeth are best doing sometimes? Biting your tongue. Yeah, biting your tongue. So if we backbite with our tongue, that's doing something to someone else. But if we bite our own tongue, or at least we shut the door. We shut the door, we put that little gate, and we go, And their tongue can't get out and they talk funny. But we don't. We keep that tongue behind that cage. And really, why we have two ears and just one tongue is the emphasis is to listen first. Listen first. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen first. Talk later. All right. Honesty being the superior way. It's better than great revenues. It's better than great treasure with trouble. It's better than the riches of the wicked. It's great gain, Paul says, again to Timothy in 1 Timothy 6:6. Honesty is the superior way. So benefits of honesty, and we're just almost done with this, and then we'll wrap this up. Some benefits of honesty. What do you think would be a benefit? Say it loud. Trustworthiness. Thank you. Yes. Benefits of other people see us as being trustworthy. So to the honest man, we find contentment, the Hebrew writer says. We read this earlier, we lead a quiet and peaceable life. We can have a good, clean, clear conscience about things and how our communication and that type of behavior is. The honest are recommended for positions of responsibility. Someone mentioned earlier about whenever it comes time we're grown up and we get a job, and now that supervisor, that employer is going to have to trust us with particular things. And the honest person is going to be as visible as daylight. The honest person is. Other benefits, even towards the world. Honesty is this factor in the conversion of others. If you don't know your New Testament, if you don't know the doctrine of Christ, and you try and share the doctrine of Christ with somebody, you're going to goof it up. You need to know it. Otherwise, you're going to get caught not knowing it. And there's not really anything worse than being caught not knowing it by someone from the denominational world. I'm just going to be honest with you about that. Someone says, no, that's not what it means. That's not what that means. We need to know the book. Go ahead.
Well, this sounds very important because it does reflect on your church, whether well or very badly.
Okay, sure. Yeah. And from what you're saying, the honest then produce fruit. If the congregation's doing what it ought to be doing, Paul preached the truth, not error. He did so with honesty, not through impure motives or trickery, he would say in 2 different places there. And so then we see this absolute need for both truth and honesty. It's not enough to speak the truth, we must do so honestly. And it's not enough just to be honest, we must speak the truth. So together, we need to strive to do what that means, and that means to have both truth and honesty. What's the dishonest man? I want you to read, take just a moment, read those yourself. And then I want you to tell me what you think is the worst. Okay, we have a last one.
They're all really bad. They're all sin in God's eyes.
Okay, they're all really bad. But what do you think, which one's worse?
It's kind of hard because I kind of want to say the last and the second one. The last, second, and the first one are all, actually no. I would actually have to say the last or the third to last.
Mm-hmm.
The
The fourth
fourth one.
one?
Because he is a false teacher.
Okay.
And they're not going to teach the truth on any of the other subjects.
Okay.
I'd say they're all sin, therefore they're all equally
Okay.
bad against God.
The fourth one? Okay, the people are honing in on the fourth one, and really what's happening, and the comment was made, yes, they are all sin, yes, they are all bad, but if that one right there, if someone's a false teacher, guess what's going to happen? All of these now are going to be a result of the dishonest person and false teaching. You see that? You see that? When it comes to truth, the person's a liar. Why? Because they're a false teacher. When it comes to business, he's a cheater. Why? Because he's a false teacher. When it comes to gaining someone an advantage, he's a slanderer. Why? Because he's a false teacher. All of those things point to that one thing. But they're all bad. Every one of them. And not necessarily one outweighs another. And some of those, you might be able to say, wow, that one, that happened to me. That happened to me, and that's what hurts. That's what hurts. So what's the solution? Well, put away those things. Put away lying and stealing. Tell the truth. Show everyone that we have such a special kind of love. Love is spoken of at least 3 different ways in the Bible. A relationship between a husband and a wife, but then a relationship between brethren as an agape kind of love, and a phileo kind of love. But whenever we see this type of love, that it is willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to get whatever needs to be done, that's love. Willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to get whatever needs to be done. Love all men.
I find it in my Bible, but I know there's verse that says love is patient, love is kind, love is not envy, it does not boast.
Yeah.
It goes through all
See, where is that? 1 Corinthians 13? 10? 13? Yeah, 1 Corinthians 13. Very good. It is, yes. 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 Yes, the truth. Very good.
If you were to lie to somebody and you are turning away, even if you think that you shouldn't tell them, if you lied to them, you should tell them what the truth really was.
Yep, you're right. You should go back and make that right. You should go back and make that right. Love all men. One does not lie, steal, or cheat those they love. We're to love one another. We're to love our enemies. We're to love our neighbors, even if our neighbor's not kind to us. We're to love all. We're not supposed to lie, cheat, and steal to the neighbor that is evil to us or wants to do us harm. Pursue what's good, both for ourselves and for all. Speak with honesty, think with sincerity, and act with integrity. Another refrigerator door thing that is worthy of being posted there. No man has a good enough memory to make a successful liar, Abraham Lincoln said not so long ago. No man has a good enough memory to make a successful liar. We just can't remember what was said in the lie. So, wrapping it up. Being honest is a matter of the will. And if we're not being honest about everything that we have a responsibility to be honest about, we need to change. We need to say, you know what? I need to stop doing that and I need to do this. Repentance is something that we show. People see it. The drunk says, I've repented from being a drunk. You know what the best thing you can do to help someone who is an alcoholic? What's the best thing a Christian can do with a person who's an alcoholic? Okay, yeah. Talk about thinking honestly. Honesty. Okay, keep them accountable. You need to be honest about those things. You need to say, hey, I saw you in the store, saw you coming out with something. And they might think, you're judging me. Yeah, I am. Because the Bible says I need to look at what you're doing. And it's sinful. We need to point out sin. And we need to be honest about that. Sometimes whenever it comes to honesty, though, and I just picked that because I did this not too long ago, and one, it broke my heart, but two, I learned some valuable lessons with. There was a gentleman at work. He's a recovering alcoholic. He's not a Christian, but I went to his AA meetings with him. Talk about an eye-opener. Children, I'm not asking you to go to an AA meeting with people. But as we grow up, and we see that level of dishonesty in people, and maybe alcoholism is fueling that, one of the best things we can do as that supportive role is to show them love. Show them love. Help them to repent. Showing what repentance is. Be honest, it's a matter of training and habit. We have to get in the habit of doing it. An honest person is a credit to their family, their employer, the country, the church, even to those around us. Lastly, for what is the allotment of God, from Job 31? For what is the allotment of God